You know what? I can't wait to quit social media. I'm like so ready to just throw my phone away. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I know it's gonna happen at some point. And everyone's gonna get mad at me and they're gonna be like, no, because of me. Or they'll be thrilled and be like,
thank God Rachel's getting off social media.
I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part.
A real team player.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
Yeah, because there's nothing more effective than 19-year-olds educating the rest of the voting public while yelling, okay, boomer.
Weird.
Regardless of the consequences to everybody else.
She has created a lot of publicity for Disney. And
reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago. It's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
Thank you, Rachel.
Rachel's glazed public nightmare just took another brutal turn, and this time it's Family Guy driving the bus.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut, who knows?
According to insider whispers making the rounds in Hollywood, writers for Family Guy are allegedly shrugging off any backlash over their savage Snow White parody.
I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film, but rather
brushing it off with a simple, brutal defense. We're just telling jokes, no apologies, no walkbacks, no carefully worded clarifications, just unapologetic laughter at Rachel Disney and the entire collapsing empire surrounding them.
she deserves to be in a padded cell.
The timing couldn't be worse for Rachel, still reeling from South Park's merciless Pandaverse special and the Simpsons' savage Snow Woke jab. She now finds herself roasted yet again, this time with Family Guy's signature brand of loud, chaotic, no-filter humor. And according to speculative chatter inside the animation world, the writers have no plans to slow down, if anything, insiders claim. They feel even more emboldened after the wave of audience support that greeted their latest shots at Disney's.
The movie is doing catastrophic.
Snow White disaster. In one of the most talked about scenes, Family Guy mocked Disney's recent struggles with brutal precision, a Disneyland roller coaster labeled Disney's stock plummeting into the abyss, while Peter Griffin looks on baffled. Another gag captured a cultural whiplash perfectly. Peter, confused about characters' identities, shouting, "What is everything?" A line that exploded into a viral meme within hours, and Rachel Zegler, without even being named directly, became the living embodiment of everything that seemed criticized. Sources close to production allegedly say that the Family Guy team sees a backlash around Rachel not as something to avoid, but as proof they hit the target.
Millions of girls will grow up thinking that this is the right way to act.
They reportedly believe they are channeling what a massive part of the audience feels but hasn't seen reflected in Hollywood media: frustration, exhaustion, and anger at constant reboots and lectures dressed up as entertainment. For Rachel, it's another devastating blow, because when even shows like Family Guy, the kings of unapologetic mockery, start treating your downfall as comedy gold, it's not just a rough moment, it's a cultural lock-in, a signal that the jokes aren't going away anytime soon, and neither is a humiliation. And if the rumors are true, this might only be the beginning. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Rachel Zegler's career was built for a fairy tale ending, handpicked by Steven Spielberg, praised for her breakout performance in West Side Story and chosen to star in Disney's live-action Snow White. Everything pointed toward her becoming Hollywood's next unstoppable A-lister.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
But somewhere between the press tours, the interviews, and the mounting cultural backlash, the dream twisted into a very public nightmare. And now insiders say Rachel has become something far harsher than a movie star. She's become the symbol of everything audiences feel is wrong with modern Hollywood. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was small things, awkward comments about how the 1937 Snow White was weird, how the prince was a stalker, how her version would be about leadership and self empowerment instead of love. It was sound bites that might have passed unnoticed in another era, but in today's media ecosystem already primed for outrage over endless reboots and forced moral lectures, the clips caught fire. TikTok stitched them into viral memes. YouTube critics dissected every word. Fans who once eagerly lined up for Disney magic started asking a much harder question: do they even like the stories they are remaking anymore?
Put another gay diverse woman in it, make it more.
Rachel quickly found herself at the center of that cultural storm, not because she single-handedly caused it, but because she became the face of it, a talented actress caught in a perfect storm of bad timing, corporate overreach, and exhausted audiences who were tired of being scolded instead of entertained. And when the Snow White box office numbers came in flatter than anyone inside Disney dared predict, the narrative hardened. Insiders say executives scrambled to find excuses: bad marketing, shifting demographics, political polarization. But for many fans, the answer was simple: they didn't recognize the story anymore, and they didn't feel welcome at the theater anymore either. Enter the satir's South Park, so the cultural wound and plunged a knife in the Simpsons, twisted it even deeper. And now, with Family Guy allegedly making it clear they're not backing down, the humiliation keeps multiplying, not because Rachel's glare personally destroyed Disney's magic, but because in the eyes of millions, she came to represent the moment. It slipped away when Family Guy decided to take aim at Disney's Snow White disaster. They didn't just land a few soft punches, they unleashed a full comedy blitzkrieg. And according to insiders close to the animation world, Disney executives were blindsided by how precise and how devastating the mockery turned out to be. The first shot was almost elegant in its simplicity. In one scene, Peter Griffin wanders through Disneyland confused and bewildered.
So Snow White slept and waited for her prince to come, but he never did.
But the real punchline wasn't what he said, it was what the audience saw in the background. A roller coaster labeled Disney stock plummets downward in a free fall, no subtlety, no metaphors. To decode, just a vicious visual reminder that Disney's golden age might be in free fall, and that their endless parade of reimagined classics was part of the crash. Then came the identity confusion gag. Peter watches television and comments, "Wow, that girl is hot." His friend corrects him, "That's a boy." It happens again and again until Peter, thoroughly confused and overwhelmed, shouts, "What is everything?" A line that exploded into a viral meme almost instantly. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, everyone sees on it. Because it wasn't just funny, it felt true. It captured the cultural whiplash a lot of viewers have been feeling. Rapid redefinitions, relentless reinventions, endless identity rewrites, all while Hollywood expect unquestioning applause. Insiders speculate that Family Guy's writers hit so hard because they weren't guessing how audiences felt. They were channeling it. They tapped into the frustration of millions who felt alienated by Disney's endless lectures and moralizing, who missed the days when a fairy tale was just a fairy tale and not a 12-slide Instagram rant about societal flaws. And Rachel Zegler, whether she liked it or not, became the unspoken face of it all. Family Guy didn't even have to name her directly. They didn't have to show a cartoon version of her standing on a soapbox by torching the entire framework around Snow White's collapse. The confused messaging, the forced reinventions, the hollow virtue signaling. They burned the house down around her.
Cry me a river. I deserve to be paid for every single hour I am in the outfit of Snow White.
And if the insider rumors are true that Family Guy's team feels no remorse and plans to keep swinging, then what's happened so far might just be the opening act. Some memes are funny for a week, others tap into something deeper and become part of how an entire generation talks about a moment in culture. Family Guy's now viral line, "What is everything?" didn't just make people laugh, it crystallized a growing frustration with Hollywood's constant churn of remakes, redefinitions, and moral messaging. And insiders say Disney executives realized almost immediately just how devastating that punchline really was when Peter Griffin shouted the line. It wasn't just another edgy gag, it captured the exact feeling millions of moviegoers have been carrying for years: confusion, exhaustion, and resentment. Every beloved character redesigned, every classic story repackaged into a modern update, every ounce of magic squeezed out and replaced with corporate-approved messaging about what's acceptable to dream about. Now, the brilliance of the meme was its simplicity. It didn't attack anyone directly, it didn't have to mention politics, studios, or specific actors. It just put into words a cultural whiplash so many audiences were already feeling. When did everything start feeling so hollow? When did every trip to the movies start feeling like homework? When did loving a simple fairy tale become an ideological battlefield? And the cruel twist for Rachel Zegler, even though Family Guy didn't say her name, she's become permanently attached to that meme in the minds of many viewers. In TikTok edits, YouTube reaction videos, and endless Reddit threads, clips of her Snow White interviews are now being stitched together with Peter's existential meltdown every time someone shouts, "What is everything?" Online, it's a short hop to someone posting Rachel's soundbite about a prince being a stalker or Snow White being rewritten for a modern age.
"We walk around in dresses, and we don't get paid for it."
Sources close to Disney reportedly admitted off the record that memes like this are far harder to fight than bad reviews or box office flops. You can spin numbers, you can flood the media with interviews, but you can't argue with a joke that lands because it feels true. And now insiders fear what is everything isn't just a meme, it's a rallying cry, a shorthand for why audiences are tuning out of Disney's reboots, and why Rachel Zegler, fair or not, has become the accidental face of that backlash. Before Family Guy even sharpened their knives, South Park had already launched a missile straight at Disney, and at Rachel Zegler by proxy, their joining the Pandaverse special wasn't just a roast, it was a full-scale scorched earth dismantling of the entire formula that had dragged Disney's reputation into freefall. Insiders say it wasn't a coincidence that Family Guy followed so closely behind. South Park cracked the door open, Family Guy kicked it off the hinges in joining the Pandaverse. South Park didn't just parody Snow White, they went straight for the beating heart of Disney's recent failures. Kathleen Kennedy, the Disney executive often blamed by critics for the company's obsession with formulaic diversity casting and hollow reimaginings. In the special, she's handed a mystical artifact called a Panda Stone, an object that compels her to insert diverse women into every franchise regardless of story context or audience connection. The message wasn't subtle, it wasn't even really satire anymore, it was a mirror held up to Disney's most recent decisions, from Star Wars to The Little Mermaid to Snow White.
This isn't the chum bucket.
And in that reflection, audiences saw exactly what they've been frustrated about for years. South Park's most devastating blow came when their Kathleen Kennedy standing threw her arms into the air and proudly declared the now infamous line, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." That single sentence became an instant viral sensation. It summed up every tired reboot, every hollow representation play, every movie that felt like it had been assembled in a boardroom rather than dreamed up in a storyteller's mind. And while Rachel Zegler wasn't named outright, the shadow fell across her career. Immediately, Snow White had already been struggling with fan skepticism, but after South Park's special aid, the skepticism hardened into mockery. People weren't just annoyed at the remake. They were laughing at it, laughing at Rachel, laughing at Disney. Family Guy, always attuned to the pulse of pop culture, allegedly saw that reaction and realized there was blood in the water by the time they dropped their Disneyland stock crash gag. And their what is everything meltdown, the audience was already primed to see it not as cruel but as cathartic as a punchline to a joke they had been feeling building for years, and now with Family Guy reportedly showing no remorse. And South Park already having dropped the first nuke, insiders wonder, is there anyone left at Disney brave enough to say what the audience is clearly screaming? If South Park's satire and Family Guy's mockery didn't make things clear enough, a real-world moment sealed Disney's humiliation even further. And it didn't come from an angry YouTuber or a viral TikToker. It came from George Lucas himself, the creator of Star Wars, a man whose stories once defined Disney's future. And insiders say the moment captured on camera sent an unmistakable chill through Disney's highest ranks.
To everyone who hates when I win,
I hope it's off the book we go.
At a public panel discussion, George Lucas was asked about Disney's handling of Star Wars after he sold his beloved franchise to them for billions. Smiling slightly, Lucas made a passing remark about how things had changed, how certain decisions didn't exactly match his original vision. The audience laughed nervously at first, then harder when they realized Lucas wasn't exactly being subtle. It wasn't a rage-filled takedown. It didn't need to be. The message was crystal clear. Even Lucas, the man who had once trusted Disney to safeguard his galaxy far, far away, couldn't help but acknowledge the disappointment. And that disappointment wasn't just about Star Wars anymore. It symbolized everything happening across a company, from Marvel's creative stumbles to the endless parade of live-action remakes that felt more like cash grabs and love letters for Disney executives already scrambling to control the Snow White backlash. Insiders say Lucas's little jab was a brutal reminder of what they had lost. Not just fans, not just box office supremacy, but trust, cultural credibility, the sense that when Disney announced a new project, it was something you could believe in, and once that credibility cracks, no amount of marketing spend can patch it back together. The awkward laughter the panel caught on dozens of phones and quickly stitched into viral TikTok spread faster than any official Disney trailer. And for Rachel Zegler, it was another subtle, devastating shift in the narrative. She wasn't just facing backlash from fans upset about a single movie. She was starring in a disaster that was now symbolic of a much larger rut inside the castle, when even the architects of Disney's greatest successes can't hide their disappointment anymore. It's not just a bad PR month, but a cultural collapse unfolding in real time. As if the fallout from Snow White wasn't enough, insiders now say Disney's next major live-action gamble is already under siege. And Rachel Zegler's name is at the center of it.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
According to multiple leaks and speculative reports, Disney is eyeing Rachel to lead their upcoming live-action remake of Tangled. And if fan reactions are anything to go by, the backlash has already begun before a single frame has even been shot. The numbers alone are jaw-dropping. Tangled is reportedly shaping up to be Disney's most expensive live-action remake yet, with estimates topping $500 million once production and marketing are factored in. That's $500 million, writing on the hope that audiences still smarting from Snow White implosion will buy into another reimagined classic. But early fan sentiment suggests Disney is about to walk straight into another buzzsaw. Social media exploded the moment Rachel's rumored attachment hit the news cycle. Hashtags like "Not My Rapunzel" and "Save Tangled" started trending. Within hours, comment sections filled with exhausted pleas. Can't we just leave one Disney princess alone? Why does everything need to be modernized? I'm begging you, don't touch Tangled. The frustration isn't just about Rachel personally. Insiders say it about what she now represents to a large section of the audience. Fairly or unfairly, Rachel Zegler has become a cultural shorthand for everything. Fans are tired of disdain for source material lectures disguised as scripts and marketing campaigns that feel more like scolding sessions and celebrations. And while Rachel's defenders argue that she's a talented performer caught in a media storm she didn't create, Disney executives are reportedly extremely nervous behind the scenes. According to speculative chatter, some in the Mouse House are questioning whether it's wise to gamble $500 million on a property already facing backlash before production even begins. Others argue it's too late to course correct without causing an even bigger PR disaster. Either way, insiders say the Tangled project is now burdened with an enormous additional weight, not just living up to the legacy of beloved animated classic, but overcoming a cultural climate where Rachel Zegler's involvement is seen by many as a giant red flag.
Educating the rest of the voting public while yelling, "Okay, boomer."
Weird.
Because one thing is clear after Snow White crash and burn, audiences aren't just skeptical, they're ready for a fight. And if Disney thought the backlash was bad before, Tangled might turn out to be an even bigger battlefield. There are awkward moments, and then there are moments so painfully symbolic, they end up defining an entire PR disaster. For Rachel Zegler, insiders say that moment came when she walked into a near-empty theater to celebrate her own movie's release and accidentally gave the internet one of its most brutal memes of the year. It was supposed to be a proud, joyful occasion. Rachel posted a short Instagram story, bouquet of flowers in hand, walking into the cinema like it was a mini red carpet event. But behind her, rows and rows of empty seats, barely a handful of scattered viewers, no buzz, no excitement, no crowds, just silence, and the awkward hum of a movie theater that looked more like a ghost town than the launchpad of a Disney princess. And the internet noticed fast. Within hours, TikTok was flooded with edits of the clip. Some joked that Rachel had brought flowers to her own career's funeral. Others stitched her walk into empty theaters with Family Guy's Disney stock plummeting roller coaster gag painting the most vicious picture possible. Reddit threads popped up titled "The Loneliest Premiere in Disney History." Twitter piled on with memes calling it Snow White, and the 7 empty seats. Insiders say Rachel didn't intend for the moment to go viral for all the wrong reasons, but once the images hit the internet, there was no pulling them back. The optics were too devastating. They didn't just confirm Snow White's box office collapse, they symbolized a perfect visual metaphor for a film disconnected from the audience it was supposedly made for. And for Rachel personally, it reinforced the growing narrative that she wasn't just a star of a bad movie, she was now the symbol of an entire marketing messaging and storytelling failure. Fair or not, the memes didn't care about nuance. They cared about what people could feel immediately, a crushing empty silence where Disney magic was supposed to be. Insiders speculate that this single viral moment did enormous damage to any hopes of quietly salvaging Snow White's reputation later on, because once the audience sees and laughs at a story like that, no amount of corporate spin can make them believe in the fairy tale again. And with TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube still turning out fresh memes weeks later, it's clear Rachel's meme spiral isn't slowing down. If anything, it's becoming her most lasting legacy. Behind the memes, behind the empty theaters, behind even the viral jokes, insiders say a deeper resentment has been simmering, and it finally exploded with Disney's Snow White remake. For many longtime Disney fans, Rachel Zegler wasn't just caught in a bad PR storm. She became the face of a bigger frustration: Hollywood's obsession with identity politics over storytelling. It started with the casting. Snow White has been traditionally described, from the Brothers Grimm to Disney's own 1937 animated classic, as having skin as white as snow. When Disney cast a Latina actress for the role, it immediately sparked controversy. Some fans celebrated the move as progress, but a loud, passionate segment of the audience saw it differently. They weren't angry about representation itself, they were angry at what they perceived as rewriting a classic character, while simultaneously treating the original as problematic. And Rachel's interviews didn't help. Rather than simply expressing excitement for bringing her own spirit to the role, Rachel openly criticized the original Snow White story, calling it weird, labeling the prince a stalker, and hinting that the classic love story needed to be scrapped instead of honoring the fairy tale. Many fans felt she was insulting it, and by extension insulting the generations who loved it. Then things got even messier. Rachel's political activism, especially her vocal support for Palestine during the Israel-Gaza conflict, added yet another layer of controversy. Her co-star Gal Gadot is famously pro-Israel, creating an unspoken but deeply uncomfortable tension. Lebanon officially banned the movie, citing Gadot's involvement, but the broader internet battle lines were already drawn. Another example to some of Disney projects becoming political minefields instead of entertainment escapes. What should have been a celebration, a new generation discovering a beloved story, felt to many like a cultural war zone, a battlefield of redefinitions, moral lectures, and corporate marketing dressed up as empowerment. And at the center of it, fairly or not, stood Rachel Zegler. Insiders speculate that the backlash wasn't inevitable. A different tone, a little more respect for the original, a little less scolding of the audience. Maybe the reaction could have been softened, but by the time the memes exploded and the theaters emptied out, it didn't matter anymore. The audience didn't just reject the movie, they rejected the entire approach, and Rachel, she became the face they associated With it a symbol of Hollywood's blind spot, a reminder that in chasing approval points and online virtue, Disney had forgotten why audiences love their stories in the first place. Just when you think the roasting might finally cool down, insiders say the next blow could already be looming. And it could come from a place Disney can't easily ignore. Whispers inside the industry hint that The Simpsons, the longest run and arguably most culturally trusted animated series in television history, may be circling the Rachel Zegler Snow White disaster next. And if that happens, it won't just be another meme. It could be the final nail in the fairy tale coffin. The Simpsons has always specialized in parodying trends. After the dust starts settling, they don't jump into the chaos, they wait, watch, and then deliver a brutal postmortem, often with more accuracy and cultural sting than any hot take. And insiders speculate that Disney's own properties aren't off limits anymore after all. The Simpsons already mocked Marvel fatigue, Star Wars burnout, and the endless reboot cycle. Despite all those franchises sitting under the same corporate roof, if The Simpsons were to take direct aim at Snow White, Rachel's glare, or Disney's broader obsession with rewriting its own legacy, it wouldn't just be another jab, it would be a signal, a cultural stamp of disapproval. Because when The Simpsons joins a roast, it doesn't feel like internet noise anymore, it feels like history being written in yellow ink, broadcasted to millions, locked into the DNA of pop culture forever. For Rachel, the prospect is devastating. Sources close to the situation reportedly say she's already exhausted from the South Park fallout, the Family Guy mockery, and the endless TikTok memes. Another satirical gut punch, especially from a show as iconic as The Simpsons, could solidify her place in the wrong kind of Hollywood lore, not as a trailblazing princess, but as a face of one of Disney's most spectacular implosions. And for Disney insiders, whisper, the warning is even sharper: they're losing the room. When even your own properties, your own house brands start throwing punches, it's no longer about haters or reactionaries. It's about a cultural empire losing the trust and the affection of the very audience that built it. The final roast isn't about politics. It's not even about box office numbers anymore. It's about legitimacy, trust, magic, and whether Disney can never get it back. Because if The Simpsons moves in for the kill, there might be no fairy tale ending left to save. So what do you think? Can Disney still win audiences back after this avalanche of roasts, or has the magic finally slipped through their fingers for good? And do you think Rachel's glare can ever reclaim her story, or has pop culture already closed the book? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Hit like if you're ready for more truth bombs about Hollywood's biggest meltdowns. And don't forget to subscribe, because when you're ready to hear what they really don't want you to know, the next video is already waiting for you.